Welcome back, Lord of the Rings Strategy Battle Game fans. We are here again. We are going to finish up with our Legendary Legion review for the 8 Legendary Legions from Gondor of War. Sorry, we had to cut it. Like I said, we're probably going to turn into a 2-part event. We're at like an hour and 15 minutes, so we went ahead and cut the last one at that point. So we are halfway through our review. We basically, Joe and I took the 8 Legendary Legions and ranked them according to what we thought they were in power and strength wise. And we did 8 through 5 last time, and now we're going to hit 4 through 1. So let's go ahead and do a quick recap. Joe, who did you have for your 8 through 5?
So my 8th pick was the Black Gate Opens. My 7th pick was the Grey Company. My 6th pick was None of the West. My 5th pick was the Gothmog Legendary Legion.
Mm-hmm. And then I had the Grey Company at number 8, Men of the West at number 7, Black Gate Opens at number 7, Men of the West at number 6, and Rangers of Ithilien at number 5. So Joe and I had pretty similar. I mean, I think we both had Men of the West at 6, and then Grey Company, Black Gate Opens, we just hadn't flipped. So that's where we're at. So we're moving on to the number 4 list. Joe, why don't you go ahead and take it away and tell us about your number 4 list?
So my number 4 pick for this list, and this one that, so I said, and I think in our previous part, that my top 1 through 4 were going to be armies that were already builds that you would take if this Legendary Legion didn't exist. But the fact that this Legendary Legion does exist, and that all the picks are in this list already, you get all kinds of bonuses for taking them. So my number 4 pick is the Grand Army of the South. So the reason why I picked this one for 4 is because it has pretty much everything that you would take in a basic Haradrim army anyway. So I will go over that real quick. I'm trying to find it. All right, here we go. So Grand Army of the South. So you can take Suladon, the Serpent Lord.
There's a lot.
You can take Razza, the Fang of the Serpent. You can take the Haradrim King and Haradrim Chieftain, a Hasharan, War Mumok of Harad. You can take a Haradrim Taskmaster. You take a Haradrim Raider. You could take a Serpent Guard. You could take Serpent Riders. You could take a Mumok War Leader. You could take a Mahud King. You could take a Mahud Tribesmaster. You could take a War Mumok of Farharad. You could take Mahud Warriors, Mahud Raiders, and Half Trolls. So really the only thing missing from this are like African Guard and Watchers of Karna. Yeah. But honestly, I think that yeah, the Golden King. So, but honestly, the amount of profiles that are in this Legendary Legion, it's pretty much already most of the Haradrim army in there, and yeah.
It's pretty much all of Farharad, I believe, as well.
Yeah, and so the Grand Army of the South must always include Suladon, the Serpent Lord, as a war leader, or the Mumok war leader. Sorry, it may not have both. I butchered that. The pieces. It may have both if you wish. So I think that those, of course, Suladon's a hero of legend. Normally, he's going to be your leader anyway in most lists. And I think if you take the Mumok war leader, I think he'd be also an excellent pick. Only Mahud warrior models may lead Mahud warriors. At least 50% of your models in the Grand Army of the South may have Haradrim warrior or Haradrim keyword. Your force must include at least one Mumok model.
Yeah, and I feel like since you have to have at least one, this is it's an interesting list. It's one of those lists where I really want personally to have Suladon, and I also kind of want to have that War Mumok or the Royal. What is it? The Mumok War Leader.
Yeah, I honestly think you could have both in this list.
Yeah, because the War Mumok War Leader is really expensive. He's like 400 points or something like that, right?
Yeah, he's 400 points, but we did the math. If you upgraded a Mumok fully to all, because it comes with all the upgrades on it. If you take a basic War Mumok and upgrade it fully, you're saving like a bunch of points on it.
Yeah.
And plus, he has that cool ability where models, I think within 12 inches, if they call heroic move, you roll a dice, and on a 4+, the heroic move is nullified.
Yes, that's correct. It's called Imposing Presence.
Yes, and then the guy driving it is also a monster. He's like fight 5 with 3 attack, 3 might. I think he has 3 will,
He's got
1
2
fate,
will, 2 fate, and 3 wounds.
3 wounds,
Yeah.
and he has a 2-handed spear, war spear, I think, or 2-handed weapon.
It's an armor and a long-bladed spear, and a long-bladed spear is an unusual weapon. It can be used as either spear or a 2-handed sword.
Yeah, so
That's pretty cool.
He's a good pick. I think for me, you could take Sulodon. I would take the War Mumok leader, and I would probably take a handful of cheap Haradrim warriors. I would probably take some Serpent Riders in there, and then I would consider taking some of the Far Harad stuff, depending on the points values. I think 800 points, half your points are already into the War Mumok leader.
Yeah.
So then you take Sulodon. So then I'd probably try and take cheaper stuff to mitigate the expensive War Mumok leader.
Yeah.
But if you're doing 1,000 points, I would consider maybe taking a Mahud King with a War Spear and a Camel.
Yeah.
Some stuff.
I mean, the keys for it is that, you can have 50% of your Haradrim keyword guys with bows, but only Mahud heroes can lead Mahud warriors. So Mahud is one of those ones that, unfortunately, right now, the models are pretty sure out of print. But it's an army that I looked at a few years ago. I want to say like 2017, maybe 2018.
Yeah. They're solid.
Yeah, I was thinking about building it. The camels, the raiders, those are the ones on the camels, right?
No, they're called War Camel Riders. I think is what they're called.
Oh, are they? I thought the Mahud Raiders were the ones on the camels.
Oh, that might be.
Yeah. Let's see. I can take a quick look.
I know that there are Haradrim Raiders who are just watered down guys on horses.
Yeah, Mahud Raider's the one on the camel. That's cool because the camels are the ones that they do impact hits. What are they? 2 strength 4s or something like that?
It's 1 strength 4.
Yeah. Okay. But still, that's pretty darn good. I've seen it a couple times at events, and they do pretty well.
Yeah, I versed Devin Moreno playing all camels when I was playing fiefdoms, and it was
a slaughter.
It was. Let's just say it was less than fun to verse because he did it. He played it 100% perfect. He was very meticulous with each guy, and he took out at least half my army with impact hits and palers.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's a strength 4 impact hit. Defense 6 guys being moved in on a 5.
Yeah.
And, defense 5, defense 6 is pretty common for what fiefdoms is, so it can hurt. And I do believe that it does it both to the horse and the rider on a cav model. So
it does.
Yeah. So even with armored horses, your guys are being moved in on 5s for fiefdoms for that scenario. But I think it's a good list.
Yeah, this Legendary Legion has a bunch of special rules. So the first one is called Hail of Poisonous Arrows. Grand Army of the South may have 50% of its warriors armed with bows, just like a regular Haradrim army. The Making of a King. This is one that we were talking about earlier. So, you army's war leader. I think it's your army's leader may declare a free heroic action at the start of any fight phase, in which they are engaged in combat. With the enemy leader, if the Mumok war leader is your leader, he may still use this ability while atop of the Royal Mumok, in which case the Mumok will be affected as if it had been in one of the declared heroic actions.
Yeah, that's really big.
Yeah, so you can call a heroic combat with him. You can call a heroic strike with him. Which is a big deal considering that I don't believe a Mumok can normally participate in heroic combat.
No, so Mumoks are one of those things where, I'll be honest, the first time I played against Mumoks, actually I've never played it. I have. That's a lie. I played against it once. But the first time I looked at Mumoks, I was like, oh my god, how do you beat these things? How do you beat these things? But then when you go and actually read into it and you look, the Mumok is really powerful and really devastating when it moves. In combat, it is less than desirable because it's only fight value 4, and the Beastmaster or whoever's in charge of it cannot lend strike and cannot lend their fight value. So basically, a Forlong or a what's his name? Ingold. There we go. An Ingold. Basically a fight 4 hero or a basic fight 4 hero with strike, or a fight 5 hero or better is going to be able to outfight and probably win against a Mumok. Now, that being said, the Mumoks do have 3 attacks, so it's not anything to laugh at. But their biggest thing is the fact that they do those strength 10 impact charges when they move. So being able to use this special rule, the making of a king, and get a free heroic action during the fight phase. And it says action. So there's 3 of them you can do during the fight phase. You can do a strike, you can do a combat, and you can do a challenge. Now you can only do it against your enemy's leader, but that's pretty badass. Let's just be honest. I mean, think about being able to charge into your enemy's hero and call a challenge. I think that's huge.
If you charge him, he's probably going to die.
Yeah. I mean, even if you didn't charge him, think about it. Because if you do a challenge and you're locked into combat and you win priority the next turn, you're going to run into that enemy hero because you have to. And you do get charge bonuses in challenge. That's something that people have always been like, well, how does that work? Do you still? Yes. Even though you're locked into combat, whoever has priority, if they get their charge off, you're going to get your charge bonuses. So if it's a cab on cab, yeah, you're not going to get your attack bonus, but you will get lance bonuses. So for this situation, the Mumok would get impact hit bonuses. That's really, really devastating. That's a great way to wipe out an enemy leader.
I think this rule kind of gets rid of the natural one of the natural weaknesses of a Mumok.
Yes.
So I think that's one. If you wanted to play a Mumok, definitely consider taking this Legendary Legion.
Yeah.
And then it has another rule called War Beast from the South. All Mumok models in your army gain Harbinger of Evil special rule. Again, that's a really good rule.
Yeah. So
-1 to your opponent's courage.
And they cost
huge.
terror, so.
Yep. And then if you take some half trolls, I think half trolls cause terror. I want to say.
Yes, they do.
And then you have one more rule called Warrior Pride. Mahud warriors that are within 6 inches of a friendly Mahud hero model that is engaged in combat automatically pass all courage checks they are required to make, and that's the rule they already had. So,
yeah, that's a good one.
I think in order to, one reason why I put this in here is because it's basically it's pretty much most of the Harad stuff. Like I said, there's some stuff like Watchers of Karna, African Guard, who were really solid troop picks that aren't in this list, but you got a lot of other picks that are in this list and that are solid.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a really good way to play Harad, and Harad's still a pretty top tier army in terms of people winning tournaments with him.
Yeah, and scoring highly. I actually thought about playing Harad for a while, and now that this Legendary Legion is out, I would like to maybe look into playing it again, just because of that bonus of being able to use the Mumok war leader on his Royal Mumok to maybe go and do some assassination kills. The biggest thing, I don't know, I think you said this, Joe, but we may have glanced over it, that's one of the additional rules. It's at least 50% of the models in a Grand Army of the South Force must have the Haradrim keyword. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure the only ones that don't have that keyword are Mahud.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the only non-Haradrim things in there.
I'm trying to look up Mahud real quick.
I think Sulam was definitely a good pick if you wanted to take both him and the Mumok war leader. That's a way to go. You get like 6 might. You got 2 really good heroes. I think that a third pick would be a king, or a lot of people overlook Raza, but Derek's done some really good things with Raza in the past. I mean, he's like 3 attack, Bane of Kings.
I think Raza is a very good pick.
Yep.
I know there's some people who think that Raza is absolute garbage, and I won't lie. Raza is one of those ones where he's only fight 4, so that's kind of against a fight 4 meta. But his ability to get +2 to his fight value against the hero that he's trying to assassinate, and then he's still got heroic strike. I mean, that makes him better than any Rohan hero straight up. I think Helm Hammerhands fight 6. I think he's the only one who's fight 6. But every other,
Helm's 5.
Oh, is he 5?
Yeah.
That's a weakness then. I didn't realize that. But okay, so he is better. That with his little special rule, he can pick any Rohan hero and be fight 6, which is better than any Rohan hero. So that's really deadly.
So he's better than most, like, for instance, fiefdoms only fight 6 guys. Emerhill,
Yep.
Gondor, there's only 2 fight 6 guys. That's Aragorn and
Boromir.
Gormir. Pretty much like the standard for most men is 5, unless they're like highborn Numenorian blood.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of thing. Or be a Boromir, whatever he is. Boromir's just Boromir, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a very good list. I would definitely be intrigued into playing it. Plus, I think they get the poison arrow thing. So, yeah, hail of poison arrows. You can give them poison arrows. The warriors, yeah. And since you can take 50% of your 50% of your warriors overall can take it. So that's, you have to have at least 50% of your models be with the Haradrim keyword. So any models from Far Harad, which are the Mumok King, I'm sorry, not the Mumok, the Mahud King, the Mahud Tribe Master, Mahud Warriors, Mahud Raiders, and Half Trolls. Those guys have the Mahud keyword. Believe it or not, Mumoks actually don't have an army list keyword. I was just glancing at that. They just have, like, I think War Beast and Monster and like Mumok for the keyword. They don't actually have what faction they come from. Yeah, they don't.
They're a big mystery.
Yeah. Well, that's because they come from 2 areas, Harad and Far Harad.
Yeah. But that's my number 3 pick, or sorry, my number 4 pick.
Yep.
I think it's a really solid army. I think it's just another way you could play Harad, and I think that it has, you could, like, when I'm subjectively trying to look at scenarios that you could win with this list, pretty much all the Legendary Legion scenarios that are strength ones that are weaknesses.
Yeah.
I can see you playing a horde of these guys where you can win number scenarios. I can see you taking you got Cavs, so you can win most mobility scenarios with that.
Yep.
Then, like, scenarios like Lords of Battle, you're gonna be able to go in there with that. If you take the War Mumok leader, you can just go in there and start massacring guys with impact hits. You got all kinds of impact hit abilities in this list, so like Impalers with the camels, which is good for scenarios like Lords of Battle. So
it's not got a lot of tools when it comes to, like, outside of your standard troops, but those troops have a lot of tools individually themselves. Like Joe just said, a lot of impact hits, and that's huge.
Even like the upgraded War Mumok, he's like a battlefield-wide banner or something like that, like a war horn. He has all kinds of abilities that buff your troops. And like I said, we added up the points. If you took a regular Mumok, let's just go to, because it comes with all the upgrades. If you take a regular Mumok, it's 300 base, and then you upgrade it. When we start talking about all the upgrades you can give it, it's pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But then the
Royal Mumok, we'll just cover it because I got it on the page. The Mumok war leader rides into battle upon his Royal Mumok. This is a war Mumok of Far Harad with the gnarled hide, sigil to defense, and tusk weapons upgrades. Additionally, the Royal War Mumok has a fight value of 5 rather than 4. That's big.
Yep.
The Mumok war leader replaces the Mahud Beastmaster Chieftain and is placed in the same manner as the Mahud Beastmaster Chieftain. Additionally, the Mumok war leader may include Haradrim warriors in the Howdah as if they were from Far Harad army list and not lose its army bonus. So normally, since this Mumok in particular comes from Far Harad, you could only put Far Harad models in, which I believe are the Mahud warriors, Mahud raiders, and half trolls. Now, the raider you obviously can't put in there because of the fact that it's a Cav model. Cav model can't be in the Howdah. But you would normally only be able to put half trolls and Mahud warriors. So being able to add Haradrim warriors is really big because Haradrim warriors are the ones that can give you 24-inch poison bows. So it gives you that ability to have extra Harad guys. Basically, you just combine regular Harad with Far Harad, and it helps you for that 50% minimum that you need for your Haradrim keyword as well.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen more of these war leaders. I don't think I've seen anyone take him, and I think it's a really solid pick. Of course, it has. You have?
Yes, there's actually several guys from the Tennessee group, including one of their leaders, Austin Featherstone, that really loves the Grand Army of the South. And I can't blame him because these things are the Mumoks are really badass looking model, just to put it bluntly. So it's a really good combo having that with it as well. So I know there's a few guys from there, and at least one guy from Chicago that plays it as well.
Yeah. So my kind of final thoughts. I can't go as much in depth of this list as I can with like the other my first and second and third pick, which we covered the third pick for me in our last video. Because I haven't I haven't personally play tested with or against it, but I'm going purely on paper. It looks like you could just take a lot of the models that are already in the Haradrim list, and then you get buffed. You get to have some buff stuff with that. And to me, that's where I would say, well, this Legendary Legion on a competitive standpoint, and it's very thematic. Every list in here has been thematic, but on a competitive standpoint,
it loses out on the ability to take like the Betrayer from
the Betrayer, Watchers of Karna, African Guard.
And the Betrayer is a good one where I think what's his special ability is he spends a point of will, you get to reroll all failed wounds when shooting or something like that.
Yeah, all failed wounds. I think it's with poison weapons.
With poison, yeah, okay.
So in combat and shooting, because a lot of the Haradrim guys have poison weapons in combat.
Yeah. So I mean that is one thing you would be losing, but I still think that if you're going to play if you're looking to play Harad with a Mumok build,
this is the way to go.
Is the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So want to move on to my number 4?
Yeah, go ahead. No, that covers it pretty much.
Okay, so my number 4 is one that Joe actually has played several times, and I played against it, and it's the one that I lost to with a major loss with my Rangers of Ithilien, which is why I put this one above Rangers of Ithilien, because we are ranking it based on how they stand, and so I have seen this army do very good against Rangers of Ithilien, and that is the Return of the King Legendary Legion. So the Return of the King Legendary Legion is Aragorn's Legion, where he is leading the Army of the Dead into combat at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and this list does respond now. This is more of a movie Legendary Legion over a book Legendary Legion.
Yeah, the Grey Company is the book one.
Yeah, that's a book Legendary Legion. This is strictly a movie Legendary Legion. So the army composition is Aragorn, Strider. You can give him an Elven Cloak. Legolas Greenleaf, you can give him armor or an Elven Cloak. Gimli, Son of Glowin, you can give him an Elven Cloak. The King of the Dead, Herald of the Dead, you can give him a shield. Warrior of the Dead, you can give them banners, shields, or spears. And Rider of the Dead. Their additional rules is this army must include both. This is key. You have to have both Aragorn and the King of the Dead. Aragorn is always the leader. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli may all lead Warrior of the Dead and Rider of the Dead, Warriors of the Dead and Riders of the Dead in this army list. There we go. So unlike the Men of the West Legendary Legion, where Legolas and Gimli were kind of just going to be solo drops, since that one required you to lead based off of your keywords, this time they can actually lead stuff, which is another reason why I think this list is better than that one. So you're not just going to have 100-point solo drops.
Yeah, all your heroes can lead stuff. So I actually have 2 stories. I've played with this Legendary Legion a handful of times, and I've actually done quite well with it. I have versus Legendary Legion a handful of times as well. So actually, I versus Legendary Legion last round Pass of the Dead. When I was playing the Riders of Theoden Legendary Legion. That was my army. And I was versing the Return of the King Legendary Legion. We were playing Hold Ground. So I actually have my Return of the King is actually ranked number 1 for me.
That's impressive.
Which I know a lot of people are going to be like, you're crazy. But I have several reasons why, and I'll go into those.
Hit them, Joe. I mean, you got reasons why you have them that high, just like I had reasons why Rangers of Ithilien are so low. You've got the experience. Hit it, bro. So
I'll go into the versing them first. So for me, the Riders of Theoden is actually ranked number 2. Spoiler alert. So when I versed this Legendary Legion with my Legendary Legion, we were playing 850. 850 was the points limits. He had Aragorn. He had the King of the Dead. Was it okay? 735.
Yeah.
He had Aragorn. He had a king. He had a herald. You're like on paper, like, well, that's not a lot of models, right? Or a lot of heroes. But he had those heroes, and then he had packed out warbands of warriors and riders of the dead. So he had the highest model count I've seen for this list. So we're playing whole ground. I charge in, like I said in our last video, the Rohan. I charged in all my royal guard. I charged in all my heroes. I called death. I had a decent turn of killing stuff. Decent, not bad because they're defense 8, so I'm needing 6s all around.
Even charge bonuses.
Yeah, you know, charge, so it was harder. I had to spend a little bit of might to actually go into the next fight with a few of the guys. So I called death. Then next turn, he calls heroic movement with recurring might. I call a movement with fade and whoever. I lost the roll off, and this is the big thing about Rowan. I lost the roll off. He was able to straight up envelop me with his horde of dead guys. In that turn, I lost. He almost broke me in that turn. He killed Darrowine. He killed a handful of my royal guard because here's the big reason why I think this list is overlooked. And I think a lot of people play this list, and I think that it's Damien plays first with it at Throne of Skulls. So you got, when you start pairing up Blades of the Dead, you're winning your courage value instead of your defense value. My guys are defense 3, he's strength 3, right? So he needs 4s. And then Harbinger of Evil, so I become courage 2, technically defense 2 to him. So he still needs 4s. But him wounding my royal guard, my riders, and most of my heroes on 4s and 5s was absolutely, it destroyed me. And then he had Aragorn go in there and he chopped Théoden up into pieces. So I think that when I've playtested this list, I try and take the king, a herald, Aragorn, and Gimli or Legolas. I actually think he had the perfect storm of just not taking that last pick of heroes and then just taking a lot more troops, because these guys are really, really hardy. They're not going to go down too easily.
No,
you're not gonna have any bow shots, but honestly, in the games I've had with him, you don't lose a lot of guys to bow shots, so you can just march towards someone. Aragorn has heroic march because he, has the ability to do all the heroics basically. So it has a lot of really good tools in it. The King of the Dead has like 6 will, so good luck casting magic on him. Aragorn has 3. And another big thing with this Legendary Legion is Aragorn, like my other one, he gets Anduril for free. Yes. So you're outputting your opponent, and he's a 6-inch banner for spirit models.
Yep.
So your dead guys have
basically all of the special rules Joe just covered in that. This list also has the Hair of Isildur, so like you said, Aragorn gets Anduril. And then the Fight for Us and Regain Your Honor, Aragorn is a banner for all spirit models within 6 inches. And then the King of the Dead has the Harbinger Evil special rule. So that's you got a lot of really good special rules. And like you said, for shooting, this is why I put this list above, again, the Rangers of Ithilien, because I played this list, and in 3 turns of shooting, I actually got 3 turns off. Now, it wasn't full shooting, don't get me wrong. I wasn't shooting 50-something bows. I think I got maybe 40 shots total. But in 3 turns of shooting, I did 0 wounds. Strength 2 bows are trash. I mean, it's great. But Strength 2 against anything Defense 7 or above, you're wounding on 6s by 4s. And with Defense 8 troops, I was wounding 6s by 5. So I got 0 wounds.
So here's where... This is my first pick, my first place. Here's where people I think are going to be like, why did you put this higher than other armies where you don't have as many models? You said Cavs, big thing. So for me, this thing's a package deal. You have the ability, you can take as many Riders of the Dead as you can. It's not reliant on taking Mounted Heroes as your mobility pick. I think that if you wanted to take Gimli or Legolas, I think Gimli would be a better pick because he's more fighting-based than Legolas.
Yeah.
Your army is a fighting-based army, so I think he'd be a good pick. But I think after versing Landon, he had Aragorn, the King, and the Herald, and those 3 heroes, plus the just straight-up horde of dead guys he had, was enough to... I'm not trying to pound my chest here, but my Rohan Legendary Legion, I have podiumed with it at 2 tournaments now, first and second. I have not lost a single tournament game with him, and I've won almost all the practice games I've had with it. So I'm very confident this list.
Save all the spoilers for that. We'll get to that one soon.
Yeah, well, I'm saying it because of here's why I'm. So when I versed this Return of the King Legendary Legion, I kind of was like, oh, this will be an easy game. But then when I got to see how many, how everything interacted with each other and how easily he was able to take my army, he manhandled my army, which is something that hasn't been happened like a lot. Dan's Lake Town did it, but that's like a horde of guys, etc. So
I have. I put this army at 4 because the ones that I put above it, I think can mitigate the weaknesses that they have against this army. So it's an all-terror army, except for Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, obviously. So and then with Harbinger Evil, you're -1. So if you have a low courage army, you're going to be in trouble because, like Joe said, Blades of the Dead is going to be wounding you against your courage value. But these models are so expensive. You're talking about a 15-point base troop if you just give them a shield. Not even including maybe you get some shield and spear guys in there if you're trying to double up. Herald of the Dead is good because he allows the King of the Dead to use his will points to do heroic movements, which is big because I think the King of the Dead has, 1 point of might?
He has 1 point of might.
Yeah, so there you go. Again, I think that the fact that it lacks mounted heroes is kind of a painful thing. I personally would do what Joe said, and if you're going to play it, I don't even know if I would take Legolas. I would probably take Aragorn and the King of the Dead because you have to. A Herald, definitely for the bonuses and buffs it gives to the King and the banner. And then depending on the points value, 800 points, I would take Gimli as well. And then just do exactly what Joe said and buff out as many troops. The strength of this list is the fact that you can get the stronger this list is, it gets stronger with the more troops you have. So
yeah, that's why I'm kind of deciding if I take this out again, especially if I take it to an event, I might skip taking a 4th hero pick at all and just take that many more troops.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if you went that way. I would not be surprised if anybody went that way.
Because I think after playtesting with this Legendary Legion, Legolas. Oh, I also versed Chris, and he beat my Ruffians with this Legendary Legion pretty handily.
Everybody beats Ruffians.
Pretty much. Except for Azog's Hunters.
Yeah. Well, the 3 armies that I have above it, I mean, I'll get to those. We'll get to them. I just feel that they have more tools. And I am a proponent of believing that you should have a well-rounded list with some tools in it. So
I agree. The thing with me is this list has such a unique play style in terms of the tools that are in it that it makes your shooting almost worthless. Like, granted, siege weapons,
40 shots, no wounds.
Yeah, siege weapons, crossbows can do damage to you still, but it's not as bad.
Yeah.
When you get into combat, your guys are going to be hitting harder than your opponent. Like, your strength 3 doesn't matter because you're still going to be probably wounding your guy on a 4 or a 5 because you're wounding their courage. You can walk across water, which is something, I mean, that's just in their profile. You can walk over water effects and stuff like it's nothing.
Yeah, that's
so you have pretty good mobility, especially with Aragorn calling March, because you can call it for free. Aragorn does have it.
I would say that the places that they would lack would be the movement ones. Again, storm the camp, reconnoiter.
Yeah,
I'd even say destroy the supplies as well, because you're still going to be a pretty low model count army.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. The only reason why I rank this so much higher than all the other ones is because I know my cav element is not limited to the amount of heroes I can take on horses. Like, I can actually take troops with horses.
Mm-hmm.
If like, for instance, you couldn't take Riders of the Dead in this list, and Aragorn could be the only one that could take a horse, I wouldn't probably put this at number 1. But like I said, I've versed this list a handful of times, and it's deceptive in what it can do.
Yeah, I agree. I've played against. I don't think I've played against you with it, honestly. No.
I versed Dan's Lake Town with it, and I took Legolas and Gimli, and I had a little lower model count. He beat me because It was actually a really close game. It was the closest I've come to beating Dan's Lake Town in a practice game.
You and I played when we were practicing for the Dry Falls at that time.
Yeah, and you played Corsairs?
Yeah. I handily beat you just because of the fact that I had so many models.
Yeah, well, that was one of the in a mirror image. Both games against you and Dan, I overstretched my King of the Dead, almost in the exact same way, in the exact same turn, pretty much, and you were able to kill in one turn. Yeah. Had he lived both games, I think I actually could have won because he's the King of the Dead.
And I'm pretty sure I killed Aragorn too in that game too.
Yes, you and Dan both killed Aragorn.
Yeah,
when I versed.
So they're. But
we're talking about
that was a low points cost too. That was 600. Where again, at 600, if you're including basically what is the equivalent of over 300 points worth of heroes, if you just take Aragorn, the King of the Dead, and the Herald, that's 300 points. Yeah, at 600 points, you're not getting a lot of models in there. So I'm pretty sure I was like out modeling you 3-1 or something like that, and then I had a good amount of crossbows and was shooting you down pretty well.
And on the flip side, I versed Derek playing Corsairs with this list, and I beat him with it.
Yeah, so
I mean, it's one of those things where I haven't play tested it enough to feel confident to take it to a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that when I versed my opponents, even games I've lost, where I've never lost, well, except for your Corsairs, but I've never lost big with it.
Yeah,
and I think the reason why I have it at number 1 is because I've seen people do really good with it in placing at tournaments.
Yeah.
The biggest one being Damien at Warhammer World. He placed first at their GT with it.
Yeah.
So I know what it can do. I just think for me, if I was to take it to the tournament, I'd have to really refine my skills with it and kind of hone it. So for instance, well, we'll go into that when we talk about that one.
Practice makes perfect, So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 4. So I'm actually going to go ahead and usurp you this time, Joe, and just go into my number 3, because my number 3 is already one we talked about, and I figured this might be a good point or reason to explain why. Well, my number 3 pick, I actually chose the Army of Gothmog.
Yep.
And the reason I put them above, Return of the King, is pretty much what you said. Having a siege bow and a war catapult. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And like a Mordor Troll, for example. Those are just tools that I see that could really take. Yeah, these guys are high defense, but they're only fight 3, and they're slow moving. So I could use some range with the catapult or the siege bow or even the troll, and just get in there and really do some devastating hits. Try to maybe avoid the King of the Dead and Aragorn, especially with the fact that since you're only moving 6 inches with those guys on foot. And with Gothmog has such a large amount of models, like we talked about, it's going to be a hoardy one. So if you're doing a shield and spear wall, I'm willing to let you go ahead and charge my guys and spear support, and then have the numbers advantage when it comes to dice rolls. And with that, I'm most likely going to win, because if you're rolling 1 dice to my 2, you have the same fight value. Maybe I'll throw a banner in there and get a couple extra dice. So Aragorn's 6-inch reroll range is only going to be so good against a huge horde of guys like the Army of Gothmog. So that was my thought for why I put Gothmog's Legion above the Return of the King. But we've already covered Gothmog's Army of Gothmog in the prior video. So any thoughts about that? You guys can go look into that. Joe, what do you have for number 3?
My number 3 was the Rangers of Ithilien.
Okay.
Which we covered.
Right. Yeah, we covered that pretty well. So you actually think that would be better than the Return of the King Legendary Legion?
Oh, my Return of the King Legendary Legion is number 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Why did my Return of the King was number 3? Okay. Yeah. So you had them ranked up there pretty high just because of the fact of how well I played against you with them, didn't you?
Yeah. How well you did with me, and how well you and John did at that tournament, because that's the first time you ever took them to a tournament.
Yeah.
And I know, like we were talking about, practice makes perfect. If you're able to refine your skill with them and learn how to win in certain scenarios, I think it's one.
Well, we both did good, but all the weaknesses that I said in that video, and I highly suggest if you're played against Rangers of Ithilien and been like, oh my God, they're unbeatable, go check that video out, because I promise you they are far from it. But every single weakness I listed in that video are all armies that placed higher at that event than both John and I. So, yeah.
What do you got for number 2?
So for number 2, I have the Grand Army of the South.
Okay, which we covered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Well, my number 2 pick is the Riders of Theoden.
Yeah. So,
And like I said, this one could easily be number 1 for me. The only reason why I'm kind of
well, your number 1 pick is the
Return of the King.
Okay, so my number 1 pick is the Riders of Theoden, obviously.
Yeah. So Riders of Theoden is definitely out of all these armies that we've talked about, the Riders of Theoden is the one that I have the most experience playing with. I've probably played 20 games with him. And here's why I could easily have made this number 1 too, but I see more people. Well, I think people. Here's the thing about Rohan is Rohan players do really good with this Legendary Legion. Where I think a Return of the King Legendary Legion is good for probably most people can pick them up and do good with them in an event. Rohan players though, like there are people who play Rohan. For like me, for instance, Seth, yourself, we played Rohan prior to this Legendary Legion, and once this Legendary Legion came out, I fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
So basically, the Riders of Theoden, guys, is the Battle of the Pelennor Fields Rohan army. It recreates the scene when Theoden gives his epic speech and they charge down into the horde of orcs. So here's what it entailed. So, Riders of Theoden, you can take Theoden. He comes with an armored horse, heavy armor, and a shield. Aemir, Marshal of the Riddermark, he comes with an armored horse and a shield. Durnhelm. Darrowine, Chief of the King's Knights, he comes with a horse. You can take Gambling of Rohan with a horse. He comes with a horse. Then you can give him the Royal Standard.
You can
take Elfhelm.
Throwing spears too, by the way.
Yeah, they eroded that. Yeah. Elfhelm, Captain of Rohan on a horse. Then you can take Captains of Rohan on horse. You can take Riders of Rohan. Then you take Rohan Royal Guard, and they come on horse. You could upgrade them with banner and throwing spears. So additional rules.
So there's a key to that too. If you noticed, everything came with a horse.
Everything comes on a horse, so you don't. Everything's built into the points on this Legendary Legion.
Yep.
Riders of Theoden must always include Theoden King. The clue is in the name. He's always the army's leader. Durnhelm may be deployed as part of Elfhelm's warband if you wish. If you do so, Durnhelm will count as an independent hero. And actually, I tend to do this when I play this list.
I agree. It's a smart thing.
I do this. Yeah, I do it for scenarios like Reconnoiter and Maelstrom scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if Elfhelm gets dropped by himself somewhere, he's pretty weak compared to some other heroes, and I think having Durnhelm in there to help him out is a good option.
I mean, of your big heroes, I mean, there's 4 big heroes in this list, in my opinion. Well, big, but Theoden, Eomer, Durnhelm, and Darrowine. Those 4 all have strike, which is huge. So pairing Durnhelm in with Elfhelm's warband, that just means that you're not going into a situation where if you do get isolated, your highest fight value is going to be 4 with Elfhelm. Having Durnhelm's ability to call strike is big.
There's another additional rule they added to this list, and that's your riders maintain 100% bow limit like they do for a regular Rohan army. It's not in this, but it's in the FAQs.
Yep.
So there are 2 special rules. Ride to Ruin and the World's Ending. Friendly Rohan cavalry models gain +1 of their strength on the turn of which they charge, which is a regular Rohan special rule.
Yep.
Then here's the big one. Death. Once per game at the start of any fight phase, so long as he is alive and on the battlefield, Theoden may declare that he is using this ability. Every friendly Rohan hero within 12 inches may declare either a heroic combat or a heroic strike if able, without expending might points to do so. So basically, guys, here's how I do this. Here's how I play this. I take 5 heroes with Rohan. I try and take 4 or 5 heroes pretty much every time I play this list. I try and get all my heroes into combat. Normally I do this the first turn of combat just to make sure it's absolutely devastating, making sure I have all my might still and all that. I yell death. You basically get 5 free points of might. That's how I look at it.
Yep.
You call death, bam. You heroic combat with all of them. If you have to call a strike with a few of your heroes, like if you're fighting a cave troll or whatever, you can definitely do that. But basically the name of the game is trying to devastate your opponent's battle line. So the last game I had at Dry Falls of Rauros with this list, I versed dwarves. And dwarves are actually normally a pretty hard army for Rohan to do this to. Part of it was the fact that I was able to roll a lot of hot sixes. So I shot at him. He had to come to me. I actually killed quite a few guys in shooting. Again, doesn't happen a lot of dwarves, but it did. I charged in all my heroes. I called death. At this point, I had Elfhelm, I had Darrenhelm, I had Théoden, I had Darrowine, I had Aemir, I had Théoden. So I had all the heroes. Because it was the last round, so it was like 8:28, I think.
Yep.
Called death. The first turn of combat, I broke him. He was broken after the first turn of combat. I killed that many models with death and with the subsequent charged Rohirrim I had into his guys. So that's normally how this list works. So you normally are going to charge in first turn. You're going to call death. Then you're absolutely going to devastate your opponent's battle line. And more than likely, you're going to either break them or come pretty damn close to doing it. That's pretty much how every game I've had. Now I have had, like I said, the game with against Dunharrow. I ran into a brick wall basically. The game I've had with Dan with Laketown, you're running into a Jello wall, horde of guys. So basically, it kind of depends on most opponents. So you're going to devastate them, and the subsequent turn is not going to be as devastating for you if you lose it.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it depends on who you're playing against. Against a horde army, obviously you're not going to break it. Against a high defense army, like think Iron Hills with defense 8 shield wall, or like Joe said, the Return of the King Legendary Legion, which is why I can kind of understand why he placed it higher than this. If you're just taking it individually, which one's going to do better?
Yeah.
That ability where you have to have 6s to wound. And I do think that the bonus, though, it's a normal Rohan army bonus, which is the +1 to strength on the charge. That is huge because it does make it a little bit easier to kill stuff that is defense 7, defense 8. Defense 8 models, normally you're needing 60x4s, but you get the charge off. Now it's just straight 6s. So you're going from less than, maybe a 10% chance to kill, needing 60x4s, to a straight 16. And it's not a great increase, but it's enough of an increase where it does help against that situation. So, like Joe said, he's podiumed. I've podiumed as well with this. I've pulled first place and a couple third places with this list. And Joe, I know you won the Past the Dead event with it. You pulled second place at the Dry Falls of Waros. You got something else too, I think, with it. I know you've podiumed at least 2 or 3 times.
I podiumed with Rohan at other events, but not with this Legendary Legion.
Yeah. Well, but the way that's true. But the way you've played, I'm thinking, what is it? The Fords of Potomac. Back before this was even a Legendary Legion, you got third place, but you played it pretty much like this was the Legendary Legion, and that was for Darrenhelm and Darrowine and Elfhelm. So you were playing with the old Éowyn and Éomer and Théoden models with their lack of great stats for some of them.
And so, the reason why I have this high up is I honestly do think it's probably one of the better Legendary Legions in the book.
Yes.
Mainly because you are already getting everything that you're going to take with a Rohan army.
Yep. Plus, now you're getting bonuses.
Exactly. It's the exact same reason why I think that the Return of the King and the Grand Army of the South are also very good, because you're basically getting everything you're going to take already. Yeah. Now you're just getting all kinds of bonuses for saying you're taking the Legendary Legion.
Well, I put them at number 1 because, like I said, I've seen you beat the Return of the King model when you're talking about Landon, and I've also beaten most armies with it. Go ahead.
I did beat Landon. Now here's where I kind of rank this. So this is Landon's first tournament ever, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think that was. I don't think it was his first one, but It may have been. I'm not sure.
Well, I think he was a newer player than I was.
Yes, he was a much newer player than you were at that point.
And the fact that he was able to, absolutely, I won. It was here's how I won, guys. I had 5 models on the center of the board. He had like 2, or he had none because I was able to kill the guys. He broke me. He killed pretty much everything in my army except for the 5 guys on the objective. We rolled to see if the game ended. I won. If the game had gone any more turns, he would have won. So I won. He massacred my army. I did everything that I just said to do. Charged in, called death, and it didn't have the effect that I was hoping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's at the end of the day. When you're looking at these, you're looking at them from what do you call it? You're looking through like a shot glass. This is how it looks in theory. In reality, unfortunately, it still comes down to those dice. And I know there are people out there that think this is ridiculous to say, but it is a dice game. You can have the best strategy in the world, but when you're throwing a dice, that dice doesn't care what your strategy is. At the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's gonna come up with what it is. And I know people are like, oh, you shouldn't blame it on dice. Well, you can blame it on dice sometimes. When I throw 12 dice in a game against Joe, and of those 12 dice, I roll 2 3s, 4 2s, and the rest 1s, I blame that on the dice. You know, there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. So that was a situation where you got some really bad rolls that game, I remember, because you were losing a lot of the roll-offs too for movements and priorities.
So the reason why I have the Return of the King higher is, so I'm saying Riders of Theoden subjectively to me is a better Legendary Legion because I know I could pick it up and do good with it.
Yes.
I think in terms of a broad sense, in terms of a lot of people can pick it up and do good with it, maybe. But I think the Return of the King is a versatile list. A lot of newer players, a lot of probably veteran players can definitely pick it up and probably go podium with it if they wanted to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's probably a little bit, you said it best earlier, it does have some nuances where you do need to get familiar, and that's the same with anyways. You can't just pick up a single list and expect to win every single game. It's just not going to happen. You have to take time and practice with it. So, when you were talking about you're not too confident with being able to play the Return of the King Legendary Legion, you are confident enough where, because you've got practice with and against it, you could pick it up and spend a few games worth of play testing and find the optimal way to build it and play it and do good with it. And where Rohan, it's more than just an optimal thing; it's also a skill and tactics thing. It's not easy playing with an all-mounted list. You have to set yourself up where if you can't get priority to get your charges off, you're gonna be in trouble. And what Joe said that he does, he's talking about first turn. That's first turn he charges in. There are situations where it can take several turns to get yourself in that position. And if you're playing against a high shooting army list, it can.
It's devastating for you.
Yeah, well, it's not only that, but you got to be patient because if they're trying to kite you, you've got to move into a position where you can get those charges off, but you can't put yourself in a position where, okay, I've lost the priority, now I'm getting swamped because there goes that first turn. So then you're spending every subsequent turn after that praying that you win a roll-off to get death. I think the way Joe and I do it is the first turn that you can charge and get all your heroes into combat and get as many guys into combat as possible, that does make it a very optimal situation to call death. There are people who wait till late game to call it. I know Seth likes to do it towards the end of the game after his opponent has burned a lot of might. But if you're like Joe and myself, like me personally, when I call death, I usually call it and I'm just doing straight up combats because when I charge, I'm not charging my enemy's heroes. What I'm charging is all the troops to do what Joe said and just break as many troops as possible. Now, there are situations where it's a great combo where you can charge, say, Aomer up against an enemy leader or up against a Mordor troll or something where you do need to strike. So you do a combat with, say, Elfhelm, who's going to have, 3 extra dice. You do the combat with Elfhelm, you win, kill, you move Elfhelm into the combat with Aomer. Well, now you've got Aomer doing a free heroic strike to hopefully strike higher than this said cave troll, or not cave troll, Mordor troll. And now not only do you have the 4 attacks coming from Aomer, but you've also got 3 attacks coming from Elfhelm. Oh, and now you've got 6, potentially 6 points extra might to add to that. So
yeah, so you're talking about the way I think about it. talking 5 heroes, you're talking about 5 free points of might in one turn, which is absolutely devastating. It's awesome. If it's for you, if you're versing, it's devastating. I versed Jason playing the Rohan Legendary Legion against me.
Yeah.
And like me, he'll win the fight. There's nothing I can do about it. He'll kill the 2 models, move on to 2 more models. He'll win the fight again because you got so many dice you throw down when you charge. Win the fight and kill the 2 guys. There's pretty much nothing you could do against it. But then what you can do with it the subsequent turns is all about winning the next priority, winning the next roll off. And I think that's where the not just this Legendary Legion, but Rohan in general kind of get their thing is you have to win priorities. It's so important to win priorities. And if you're versing Rohan, it's so important that you win priorities.
Yeah, to burn your opponent's resources. Well, and that's where we've said it a few times, I know, in other videos, where you have to set yourself up so that if you do lose priorities and get charged, you can get a few of your second rank, your spare troops, to get their charges off, so you have those dice in the fight. And
one thing that we haven't even covered with this Legendary Legion, we've just talked about death basically. But one thing to note about this Legendary Legion is you have 100% bow limit, so you can still have a lot of shooting in this list.
Yes.
You have an entire army of cav, so you can win most movement-based scenarios.
Yep.
You have enough knockout power in combat, so you can win most killing scenarios, depending on who you verse and what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the way I see it, you can win pretty much any scenario in the game with this list.
Yeah.
With the way I play, you can win scenarios where you gotta go grab an objective because you got the mobility to do it. You can easily sneak a hero and a few riders out to go get an objective and then go run off somewhere with it. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I recommend.
I think if you points, I try and get the 5 heroes, like Joe said. Usually at 700, that's when I try and drop like my 5th hero. For me, Elfhelm's usually my 5th hero. I probably try and get in there above 750 points, but at 700, depending 750 sometimes too, I'll drop Elfhelm and try and buff my numbers a little bit. It's not a high count. You're at 24, 25, but if you do it right, you've got enough.
And that's another thing too, is if it's also a very adaptable army. You can adapt to your opponent very well with it. So if you're fighting elves, you can charge in and just call strikes with your death, and then outfight your elves and kill them that way.
Yeah, there you go.
You can easily take down orc shield walls. You can easily take down warriors and ministerial shield walls. Like I said, I had a little bit of trouble versus Dunharrow, the Return of the King Legendary Legion, but I think that's just that list is so powerful.
Yeah, and again, dice rolls.
It's an immovable object meets a irresistible force kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at it. You need 6s to wound. I did really good against you with the Rangers of Ithilien against your Defense 6 army one time, getting lots of 6s. So again, it's just all on how lucky your dice rolls are. I mean, you said it best. You had a lot of 6s shooting with the Riders of Théoden list. And I had that too at the 600-point event where you were talking about, where I was able to play against your Isengard. The turn before that, I played against Mordor, and just shooting with like 8 or 9 warriors, Riders of Rohan, I picked up like 10 kills, which is ridiculous. So, yeah.
But yeah, pretty much everything else about Rohan and this Legendary Legion stuff that we've covered in the Rohan army review. But I think if you're going to play a mounted Rohan army, I would highly recommend just playing this Legendary Legion, because it gives you a lot of stuff that playing a regular Rohan army wouldn't give you. Mm-hmm. For instance, when Seth came to our Ringo South tournament, he's like, I'm just going to play Rohan. And I looked at his list, and I was like, dude, you have every single Rohan hero that's in the Riders of Théoden list. Why don't you just play that? He's like, what's in it? And I explained to him. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll just go and do that then. I was like, good. Yeah, that's what I would do.
It worked out. He got 3rd place.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So yeah, it's definitely it's also it's just a good list. I'd say anyone who wants to play a mounted army, who wants to play Rohan mounted, play that Legendary Legion. It won't disappoint you. And if you're it's my second pick. Jason's first. It easily could be my first. I just think in terms of if anyone could pick up an army and do good with it, it would probably be the Return of the King Legendary Legion, because it has all kinds of little tools and stuff in it. So that's just kind of my way of thinking about it. Yeah. I know there are people out there that say that the Riders of Théoden's overpowered.
Just like people say, Rangers of Ithilien are overpowered.
Yeah, and you know, like the thing is that Riders of Theoden list, the first turn you charge is always gonna be devastating, unless you roll crap, which is it's honestly never happened for me yet. It hasn't happened for me yet.
Has for me, of course.
So I think that's kind of my logic in the top 1, 2, 3. I think Rangers of Ithilien is third. It could easily have been fourth or fifth, but I think after seeing those two new heroes, the Mugbelung and Ingborn, I think that
Yeah, before that came out, I would have had him probably down at like 7, just above Grey Company due to the
just
fact that
because
they had more shots than Grey Company.
They add you a little bit more tools. It's definitely the best shooting force in the game. In combat, it's a shooting force, so it's not going to be great in combat. But I think it's what you can.
Terrible.
It's what you can do in shooting to mitigate the combats. Yeah. And
well, see, I had Grand Army of the South at number 2, and I put that in number 2 over the Return of the King because of the fact that you've got a lot of tools that can do impact hits. So yeah, you've got that high defense 8, but if you got 1 or 2, Moomoks running around there, and I'm hitting you with 4 strength 10 impact hits. So you're talking about 3s to wound against defense 10 models, or I'm sorry, defense 8 models. So yeah, and because you don't have to worry about terror because it's moving, quote unquote, not charging. You don't even care about the terror. So that's one of the things where when I looked at the 2 of them, I said even if you just take 1 Moomok, which you have to take for that Legendary Legion, you're going to outmodel the Return of the King. You're probably going to have more cavalry because you're going to take Suladan probably with some Serpent Riders for that fight 4. And I think, don't Serpent Riders come with War Spears?
They do.
Yeah, so there you go. So now you got a Lance bonus, so you're wounding on 5s by 3s against defense 8 guys if you charge. I just saw the Grand Army of the South being better than the Return of the King Legendary Legion. Again, I've played against the Return of the King Legendary. I have not played against the Grand Army of the South, so this is just kind of one of those in theory things.
See, like for me, it's if I versed the Grand Army of the South with the Return of the King Legendary Legion, I would be confident, but I'd be worried about some things. I would be worried about impact hits, but I'd be. So, like for instance, if the Moomok charged and killed like 4 or 5 guys, then back hits, and then got locked into combat with some random Warrior of the Dead, and he had priority, and then I got to move, and I was able to gank that thing with like 4 or 5 riders or warriors, and then Aragorn or something, or the king, and then wound it. Excuse me, and then wound it with Blades of the Dead. It's Courage 2. I mean, come on.
Is it Courage 2?
It's Courage 2 or 3. It'd be Courage 2 with the Harbinger of Evil.
Okay, I thought it was a little higher. I thought it was like Courage 4.
It might be 4, actually. But either way, I'm going to be wounding on 4s and 5s. That's true of any of the Haradrim guys who will be Courage 2, because they're Courage 3 base.
Yeah, it's Courage. No, you're Courage 2. Moomok is Courage 2.
Yes, it'd be Courage 1. 3s. Yep. And then if you win it with the king, then he does half wounds to it. He takes away 5 of his wounds, right?
Yeah, I think it's only got 4 wounds. I don't think it's got a ridiculous amount.
I thought a Moomok had 10 for some reason.
Maybe it does. Maybe I don't remember. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. Give me a second. Moomok. You may be right. It's been a while, like I said, since I played. Oh yeah, you're right. It's 10 wounds, so it does do half to it.
Yeah, so
no, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, so it's like I think to me the Return of the King Legendary Legion has so much raw knockout power in combat in terms of wounding stuff on ridiculously low numbers.
Yeah.
That to me it's like one of those things where you got mobility with the knights to go kill objectives. You got a really good hero in Aragorn and the King of the Dead for that matter. You got the option to take a really good support hero in the Herald, and then you have the ability to take Aragorn or Legolas or Gimli if you really wanted to. Yeah. And then you got really durable troops.
I agree with the wounding thing. The thing that I look at the end of the day, though, is the fact that the Grand Army itself, for the majority part, is fight 4. And you can wound me all you want on low numbers. If I'm rolling 6s all day, you're not getting a chance to wound me. So I don't.
I know that's the biggest. To me, that's the biggest drawback with not just this Legendary Legion, but just the Dead of Dawn hero in general. Is low.
And that's
fight value.
Why I dropped them.
But I think, especially paired with Aragorn's banner, like I said, when I first landed, he was just stacking dice on me. The fact you
Right.
can't do that, I just think
Right.
it's
Well, I mean,
situational.
and that's something
It's
where like
situational.
one of the biggest weaknesses of the Rohan Legendary Legion is the fact that I know there's some people who are like, oh, you have to take the banner with gambling. That's cool and all. I don't take it. Never have. I've taken it once. I'm not going to say I never have, but I've taken it once. Didn't do a lot. Never taken it again. Probably never will.
Yeah,
50 points for it is just too expensive.
I've never taken it in the Legendary Legion. I've
No.
taken it pre-Legendary Legion,
I
but
think
just like
if you're looking just for a simple banner effect, maybe a rider with a banner would be a better way to go. But that's something that I know neither one of us usually do. Is neither one of us take a banner with our riders of baiting, because a banner is worth basically 2 riders. So it's like, what do you do? Trade a banner for 2 extra riders, or take the 2 extra riders? And where I think with the Grand Army of the South, again going up like against the 6-inch banner that is Aragorn from Return of the King, the War Mumok is a banner. So that's because I think it's what is it, the Sigil of the Defense or something like that, or something.
I know I know it has a banner. I believe it has a banner effect. I just don't remember what upgrade it is.
Yeah, it's in there though. So I mean, again, your banner is being countered by my banner, and at the end of the day, I just think the fight 4 is always going to triumph over a fight 3 army.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I would normally agree. It's just I've seen what the Return of the King can do. Yeah. But that's basically my thoughts on it. I mean, that's the rest of my rankings. I think that I honestly think. Here's my honest opinion. You could probably take any of these Legendary Legions out and actually place with them.
Yep.
If you really wanted to. I just think it'd be easier to do with my top 4 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that all the Legendary Legions in the Gondor War are solid. I'm glad that they put Legendary Legions in the game, because honestly, I haven't taken a non-Legendary Legion army out in a long time.
I play with non-legendary legions more often than I do, just because some of the armies that I favor don't have a legendary legion yet. For example, like
like my Thranduil's Hall's Iron Hills doesn't have a legendary legion.
Yeah, and you won first place at an event we did last year with it. So, for me, I like Gundabad. When I play Gundabad, or Azog's Legion or Azog's Hunters, neither one of them has a legendary legion. Fiefdoms doesn't have a legendary legion. Easterlings don't have a legendary legion. So,
that's actually one gripe I had about. Excuse me. That's one gripe I had about Gondor at War. Was they didn't have the defense of Minas Tirith. I don't think it was very well represented in terms of a Fiefdoms Minas Tirith legendary legion.
Yeah.
Where you could have.
They got a legendary legion for the Great Company from the book, but there was no legendary legion because in the book specifically it talks about all the guys coming from fiefdoms and how many came. So it would have been nice to have something like that.
And that was my second gripe about it. That was really my second biggest gripe with it. I could talk about my gripes, but I don't think in terms of profiles, they didn't have any fiefdom stuff. Represented. Like there could have easily been 2 new characters from the fiefdoms.
Yeah, I think the book weirdly included a fiefdoms page when it came to models.
It did, but there was no profiles.
Yeah, so I guess maybe what happened there was the thought that they had something, but then ended up scratching it late, and I don't know. It's kind of weird how they did that. I mean, Rohan has one. It's got more models. Jedi Donharo has one. It's got more models. Mordor has one. It's got more models. Far Harad's got one. It's got more models. They did that. Serpent Horde's got one. It's got more models. I don't understand their thought process. I'm guessing the only reason is they maybe had something they were going to introduce in fiefdoms, and then just at the last minute pulled it. Maybe because of production deadlines, or they get the model scripts out.
Because
the other thing is the fact that they just released those new the new poses too, the fiefdoms, the knights.
Dolanroth.
Yeah, the Knights of Dolanroth from Forge World. Maybe that's why they included it in there, to be like, oh hey, look at this, you can play fiefdoms.
Well, I think that's definitely one they missed out on. If they had another Legendary Legion, I'd say they should have had one that's the defensive Minas Tirith, where Gandalf the White could be in it, Emerald could be in it, Pippin could have been in it. Baragond. And then you could have had Warriors of Minas Tirith. You could have had all the Fiefdoms characters, all the Fiefdoms troops in it. Warriors of Minas Tirith could have been in it.
I'll go back and I said Easterlings just a couple minutes ago. In the books, there was a number of mentions about Easterling warriors with shields and stuff, and there's actually, if you look closely in the scenes, I think there's some Easterling guys in the movie. So
yeah, it's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but when the trolls first bash into the gates,
yeah, they're there.
If you pause it, you'll see some Easterling helmets in the background.
Yeah, I feel like Easterlings totally got hidden anyway. And Easterlings is one of my favorite armies. If you go back to the second army review I did, it was Easterlings because they are one of my favorite armies, just primarily for the color scheme. I like that red and gold. And I just feel like they didn't get any love. So, but hey, some Easterling models released, like you talked about in another video, Joe. Maybe I'll get something finally. So
I definitely think that they'll be coming out in the future. Possibly if they Legendary Legion.
Fingers crossed. That's what I say.
Well,
fingers crossed.
well, guys, that's pretty much all my opinions on the Legendary Legions from Gondor War and kind of just some extra Gondor War ranting after. Right. But that's basically it for me, guys. So
yeah, that's me too. You want to run down your list one more time from 1 to 8?
Yeah. So for me, number 1 was Return of the King Legendary Legion. And then the second was Riders of Theoden. Again, this is subjective. I think that easily Riders of Theoden could be number 1. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the Rangers of Ithilien and Grand Army of the South could easily have been 2 or 3 either way. So number 2 was Riders of Theoden. Number 3 was the Rangers of Ithilien. Number 4 was Grand Army of the South. Number 5 was the was the Gothmog Legendary Legion. Sorry. Number 6 was the Men of the West. Number 7 was the Grey Company, and number 8 was the Black Gate Opens.
Yep. And then, like Joe said, mine is pretty much the same way. It's just subjective how I look at stuff based off of how I play and stuff. So for me, number 1 was Riders of Theoden because I've had a lot of success with them. I've seen Joe have a lot of success with them, obviously. A number of times against me. Number 2, Grand Army of the South. I see a lot of tools in it that you could use. Number 3, the Army of Gothmog. And I feel maybe this one could have switched places with number 4, which for me was Return of the King. It probably depends on scenario and stuff. I just think if I have to choose, you got a little bit more tools with the Army of Gothmog over the Return of the King. Number 5 was Rangers of Ithilien. Again, they're not a combat list. They don't want to be in combat. And something I didn't mention earlier that I think should be brought up now is they are very good at low points. You put them at anything above, say, 750, and they're gonna lose tragically. Number 6 was the Men of the West because I see it being better than number 7, which was the Black Gate Opens. And then last, and unfortunately least in this situation, is the Grey Company. And that was just, again, very thematic, just very lacking in troop diversity. So, any last thought, Joe, or are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, as always, everyone, thank you very much for sticking with us. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about these Legendary Legions. I think we'll be returning back to doing regular army reviews in the future. But stay tuned because after maybe 2 or 3 more army reviews, we are going to do the Legendary Legion breakdown for War in Rohan, which covers 5 more Rohan Legendary Legions and then several more evil ones. And I think a lot of folks really like those. So thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. Please leave some comments below. And as always, enjoy your hobby and support it as much as you can. Take care.